Have you ever tried to do important work while your phone sat within reach? It did not have to ring. Part of your mind still knew it was there. One message might change the day. One vibration might contain relief, conflict, approval, or bad news. Now place that device beside 30 adolescents and ask one adult to hold the attention of the room. Then blame the students when the room keeps breaking apart. Hi, I'm Sarah, and this is WiseMind Stories. In The Anxious Generation, Jonathan Haidt argues that phone-free schools are one of the clearest actions communities can take to interrupt the phone-based childhood. Not phones turned face down. Not phones used responsibly between lessons. Phone-free from the beginning of the school day until the end. Because attention is not only an individual virtue, it is a public environment, and we either protect it together or lose it one person at a time. To see why, enter room 214 at East Ridge High School. Lena Brooks had taught English there for 12 years. She considered herself realistic about technology. She did not confiscate phones at the door. Her rule was simple. Devices stayed silent and face down during instruction. Students could check them during passing periods and at lunch. I'm preparing them for the real world, she told colleagues. They need to learn self-control. On an October morning, a quiet 10th grade student named Amir stood at the front of room 214 to read a personal essay. He had written about translating medical forms for his father after the family moved to the United States. Halfway through the first paragraph, a phone vibrated against a desk. One student looked down. Then another saw the first student react. A third student checked whether her own phone had moved. Nobody spoke. The room's attention still fractured. Amir continued for 2 sentences, lost his place, and stopped. Can I do this another day? He asked. Lena looked across 30 face-down phones. Every student was technically obeying the rule. The room had still failed him. Have you ever been speaking to someone whose body remained with you while their attention quietly left? And how many times can a young person experience that before deciding that vulnerability is not worth the risk? After class, Lena changed her policy. She placed a numbered pocket organizer beside the door. Every phone would enter a pocket at the beginning of class and return at the bell. The first day worked. The second day, 2 students brought old phones and kept their active devices. The third day, a parent called the office because her daughter had not answered 3 messages during class. By Friday, Lena was spending the first 7 minutes inspecting devices, debating exceptions, and recording refusals. The phone basket had not removed the problem. It had made one teacher responsible for fighting the entire social system 45 minutes at a time. At the bell, students recovered their phones and walked into the hallway. Messages, conflicts, videos, rumors, and family demands rushed back in. 5 minutes later, they entered the next classroom carrying the emotional residue of everything they had just seen. The device did not need to remain physically open for the previous message to keep occupying attention. A friendship conflict could continue inside a math problem. A humiliating photograph could sit invisibly beside a history discussion. A parent's repeated question could make a student monitor the clock instead of the lesson. This is why a brief phone break is not always restorative. It can reload every unresolved demand at once. Adults often imagine that students move cleanly between phone time and learning time. The mind does not change rooms that quickly. What follows you into important work even after the screen is no longer visible? And how much of your attention is spent waiting for the next chance to check? A classroom can be phone-free while the school day remains phone-based. That distinction changed Lena's thinking. Haidt's proposed norm is not better classroom management. It is a different school environment. Students would store phones, smartwatches, and other personal communication devices in lockers or locked pouches for the entire day. The goal is not only preventing cheating or stopping obvious disruption, it is returning several hours of uninterrupted attention and in-person social life to every student at the same time. A rule that depends on every teenager repeatedly resisting a device designed to be checked is not a rule. It is a daily endurance test. East Ridge had considered a full-day policy before. Each attempt ended with the same objections. Parents needed emergency contact. Teachers did not want to become police. Students used phones for transportation, work schedules, translation, medical monitoring, and family responsibilities. Some students felt safer knowing the phone was available. These were not imaginary concerns. The school had also treated every concern as a reason to preserve the default rather than as a design problem requiring a specific solution. When does a legitimate exception become an excuse to abandon a useful norm for everyone? And when does a simple rule become harmful because it ignores the different realities students carry? The principal invited Lena, 5 parents, 4 students, the school nurse, and 2 other teachers to design a 6-week pilot. The first meeting nearly ended the idea. A parent named Monica said, "If there is an emergency, I need my daughter to reach me." The school nurse explained that one student used a phone as part of a medical monitoring system. A senior named Caleb worked after school and received schedule changes from his manager. Another student sometimes arranged transportation for a younger sibling. Lena realized that declaring phones bad was easier than building a trustworthy alternative. They created one. Parents could contact the main office, which added staff during the pilot, and promised immediate delivery of urgent messages. Every classroom received access to a landline or emergency communication button. Medical and accessibility needs received documented exceptions designed with the nurse and family. Students could check transportation and work messages at a supervised station during the final 15 minutes of the day. Teachers agreed to keep their own personal phones away during student-facing time. Devices would be stored in locked pouches from arrival to dismissal, not left silent in pockets. Consequences for breaking the rule would be simple, predictable, and the same across classrooms. The plan did not remove every risk. It made the school responsible for communication instead of quietly placing that burden on every student's pocket. The first Monday felt terrible. Students touched empty pockets while walking through the entrance. At lunch, several groups sat in silence because nobody knew what to do with the first unfilled minute. One student opened a laptop and began watching videos until staff clarified that the policy was about personal entertainment devices, not one particular shape of screen. 3 parents arrived angry because their messages had not been answered. Caleb received a work schedule change too late and lost 1 shift. That consequence mattered. The school adjusted the supervised message period the next day. Collective rules become credible when institutions repair failures instead of pretending the first version is perfect. On Wednesday, a fight nearly started in the cafeteria. 2 students had been arguing online the previous night. Without phones, neither could recruit an immediate audience. A counselor brought them into an office before the conflict expanded. The phones had not caused the disagreement. Their absence changed its scale. On Thursday, students discovered a deck of cards in the library. By lunch, 12 people were arguing about rules. The room became louder than it had been with phones. The noise worried one administrator. Lena smiled. Silence had never been the goal. Human presence was. In room 214, the change was less dramatic. Students did not suddenly love reading. They still looked through windows, whispered, doodled, and became bored. But boredom no longer had an instant trapdoor. Lena could ask a difficult question and wait through 7 seconds of silence without watching half the class disappear into another world. That waiting mattered. Thinking often looks unproductive before it becomes visible. The largest reversal came during the second week. Lena asked Amir whether he wanted to read his essay again. He said no. She accepted the answer. The following day, Amir entered class early and placed the pages on her desk. "Can I do it before I change my mind?" He stood at the front of the room. This time, no hidden vibration altered the social weather. The students looked at him. Not every person maintained perfect eye contact. One stared at the floor. Another drew small circles in the margin of a notebook, but the room stayed in the same room. Amir finished. For 2 seconds, nobody spoke. Then a student near the back asked what age he had been when he began translating for his father. The question was not brilliant. It proved that someone had followed the story far enough to become curious. Attention is one of the ways a group tells a person, "Your inner life can exist here." That is why school attention is more than an academic resource. It is a social good. Critics of full-day phone restrictions reasonably ask for evidence, careful implementation, and respect for student autonomy. Policies can be punitive, inequitable, or unsafe if schools ignore medical needs, family communication, disability, work, transportation, or emergencies. The answer is not careless enforcement. It is designing a stronger system than the one the phone currently provides. Students should also have a voice in that design. A policy done entirely to them can teach obedience without teaching judgment. A policy built with them can reveal how defaults, environments, and shared expectations shape behavior. At the end of the 6-week pilot, the school surveyed students. The results were mixed. Some wanted the phones back immediately. Some reported feeling less anxious. Some said the school day felt longer. One response stayed with Lena. "The day feels longer, but I remember more of it." The sentence captured something no test score could fully measure. Continuous stimulation can make time pass quickly while leaving very little experience behind. The pilot became a year-long policy with revisions. Medical exceptions remained. The final message station expanded. The office published clearer emergency procedures. Staff received training so enforcement would not depend on which teacher a student happened to have. The policy was still imperfect. Perfection was not the standard. The question was whether the environment made sustained attention more normal than continuous interruption. If a school or organization wants to protect attention, use 4 ideas: away, all day, everyone. Enforced. Away means the device is genuinely inaccessible, not visible, face down, or vibrating in a pocket. All day means the social world does not flood back during every transition and arrive emotionally inside the next lesson. Everyone means the norm is shared across classrooms and modeled by adults, with clearly designed medical, accessibility, and safety exceptions. Enforced means the rule is predictable, simple, and supported by the institution. It should not depend on one exhausted teacher negotiating 30 separate contracts. Which environment in your life asks for attention while keeping interruption permanently within reach? What legitimate need must be solved before a stronger boundary can work? And what could become possible if an entire group became unreachable together? Months later, Lena still used technology in class. Students researched, drafted, edited, and created digital projects on school devices. Phone-free did not mean knowledge-free or future-free. It meant one particular commercial and social environment no longer had unrestricted access to the school day. Amir's essay remained pinned to the classroom wall. Lena kept the original page where he had stopped mid-sentence. It reminded her that attention is not only something students owe a teacher, it is something a community owes anyone brave enough to speak. Attention is not only an individual virtue, it is a public environment. And we either protect it together or lose it, one person at a time. But one school cannot solve a childhood built around devices. Students still return to families where delaying a smartphone can mean social exclusion. Parents still make decisions, while every other parent is making the opposite decision. Technology companies still benefit when each family believes it must negotiate alone. In the final episode, we will examine the collective action trap and Haidt's 4 proposed norms: delaying smartphones, delaying social media, creating phone-free schools, and restoring independence and free play, because no family should have to rescue childhood by swimming alone against an entire culture.